Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I know it's been a couple months, but I figured we're in the dog days of summer and I thought this would be a perfect time for a bonus episode. And I have the lovely Lauren here. She is the CEO and the CMO of A Kinder World. Thank you, Lauren, so much for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me. I am really looking forward to the conversation.
Oh my God, I'm so excited to have you here. Before we dive in and talk about A Kinder World, I would love to hear a little bit about yourself.
Hey everyone, so I'm Lauren. I'm calling in from Australia. So I'm living down in Melbourne. It is very frosty. It is a cold winter this year. But for myself, I've been in the games industry for about, I would say, 11 years or so. I went to business school. I didn't study games in particular. I'm not a coder, I'm not an artist. As Darcy was saying, I'm much more on the business and marketing side of things. And I've worked on everything from VR games to shooters, horror games, indie puzzlers. And a few years ago, once the pandemic hit, I started working on A Kinder World, which has been our biggest success to date.
Absolutely amazing. I cannot wait to dive in to talk a little bit more about your successes. But as a Canadian, I have to ask you, it is winter, it is summer here. You say it is cold. I don't have to play the fucking game of Fahrenheit. What is the Celsius there?
I love the sanity of chatting to Canadians because I'll even have Americans on my team and the dance of are we talking Celsius or Fahrenheit? Today it is a very frosty top of 12 degrees Celsius, which feels incredibly cold for me, which I know to a Canadian is hilarious. My thin Australian blood. I have got the heater on. I'm taking my vitamin D tablets. It is super, super, super cold for me. But where I live, it will get up to like 40 or over 40 in summer sometimes. So we get a really big range, but right now we're shivering in our boots.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so today it was 41 Celsius here. So
Oh,
it is a
delicious.
scorcher. No, everyone
I
here is
would
like
way prefer.
we're like you can't take the heat. It's so you can't even curl your hair. You curl your hair, it's
Yeah.
flat within seconds.
Mm-mm-mm.
I was like, a nice 12 Celsius. That is like a t-shirt and vest weather for me.
Nah, that's so wild to me. My parents are about an hour and a half away, and it'll be a good 5 degrees colder.
Yeah.
And sometimes it snows. It doesn't like a build up, but the snow does fall. And that is like special. Australians will like drive for 4 hours to try and see snow. It's just so rare. You've really got to put some effort in if you want to see proper, proper cold. So, I mean, Australians, if we go over to Canada, we go somewhere super cold, we are the ones that are most in danger of like just making a stupid mistake and needing like medical assistance because we don't know how to like dress for the cold when it's really serious. So it's a good silly time, but it's a great time of year to stay inside, get cozy with cozy games, enjoy a hot drink. So winter is good for the gaming.
Definitely is winter is good for the gaming. As it's summer right now, I'm like, how can I be outside? I like Lauren,
Yes.
I want you to experience like a negative 40-degree day because
I think I would die.
that's what
I
we
think I
get
would
here
just
sometimes.
expire.
So like we'll get like a minus like 23, but the wind chill will be like minus 45. And like you have to be really careful because your pipes can freeze at that point. And
I
anybody
wouldn't know.
listening to this who's gonna be in Australia or around the world, I
Yeah.
actually live in a pretty south part of Canada. So like it's actually not that cold. There are actually much colder parts of Canada that I consider if anybody watches Game of Thrones, it's beyond the wall. I'm not beyond the wall, even though it can get freezing snow, death, ice cold,
Yeah.
at any time. But
Oh my
anyways, we
God.
could continue talking about the weather as
Mm-hmm.
that is literally a Canadian thing. That and Tim Hortons are the two things that we could talk about forever. So I want to kind of dive in to the beginnings of your career. You've had a lengthy career in the game development industry. What has the biggest changes been since the day you started to where you are today?
It's such a great question because games is that there's a very interesting intersection between creativity and technology. So you'll see that games have got all of these breakthroughs in terms of the experiences you can have, new genres emerge, new ways for a game to like fit or enhance a certain lifestyle. Innovation is at the center of what happens. So games moves very, very quickly. So when I was in business school and learning about marketing, at that time we were still talking about media buying for billboards and magazines and print, right?
Mhm.
Which just feels like a bajillion years ago now. Because now with games, I think some of the key things I saw was embracing content creators. So working with streamers, working with content creators, and just saying, we will go with where the technology is and we will facilitate whatever someone wants to do creatively with technology. So it wasn't that long after I joined the games industry that we unfortunately had Gamergate. So we had issues of like toxicity, culture wars, people saying, well, this hobby is part of my identity. And now, I am feeling threatened by that. And technology means that I've got a lot of access to people. So the internet used as a weapon, unfortunately. So I saw a lot of that. I definitely saw content creation and streaming and how brands and companies could work with content creators in totally different ways to deliver more authentic, more interesting, and more relevant personalized marketing, which was great. I came in a few years into just the proliferation of mobile gaming and just emerging different business models. So Australia, like China, is a really important trade partner for Australia. The city that I live in has got a really big Chinese Australian population. China spearheaded so much of like the mobile free-to-play business model.
Mm-hmm.
And I could see so much more that a free-to-play game or a game experience delivered on mobile, suddenly a mobile would be the first console that someone would own, So for yourself and for me, we might have grown up with a Game Boy being the first, Super Nintendo, Nintendo 64. Those are our first consoles, or potentially a PC. But now we've got millions of people where their phone will be the first time they have a gaming experience. And what is different about that journey? So I have seen so many interesting little rotations in my time, that's for sure.
That's such a fantastic answer. As soon as you said that, my brain was like, "Oh my god, you're 100% right." So, like, I'll be 31 next month. So, like, I grew up with like, I had a house computer, but it was honestly on dial-up, and, like, I know, right? And anybody, the youth listening to this is like, "What the fuck's
Mhm.
dial-up, Stas?"
Yes. We're like
Right?
Neopets, Habbo Hotel,
I was literally like, I actually had, because like I figured you like Neopets because you also follow their page as I follow
Oh,
their page. So
100%.
we
Yeah.
will get to that
Love it.
a little bit later in this podcast. But you're absolutely right. Like when I got a cell phone when I was 9 or 10, and it
Mm,
like
mm.
it had Canada's beautiful free texting after 7 p.m. 100
Wow.
text messages. I think it was like 200 minutes a month. There was no data.
Wow.
I had, like the sand lizard game that we all had. But and, like when I got my iPhone, I was like, "Oh my god, like
Mm,
The Sims 3 was on mobile." I was like
yeah.
back in like 2009. I was like, "I can play The
Mm,
Sims 3 on mobile. I can play Monopoly on mobile. I can play all these games.
mm,
It's literally at my fingertip. I'm carrying a computer with me."
mhm.
The generation now growing up, they've had this their entire life. Like
Yes.
I have like one of my best friends has a child,
Mm,
and I love him so much, and like we'll like take a picture together, and he like grabs the phone. He knows what a phone is. Like, it's part of
wow.
our day-to-day lives. Like
Mm,
literally
mm,
today I was having coffee with my mom, and I was texting people back because I'm starting to book guests for season 3.
mm, mm.
And my mom's like, "Can you like we're having a coffee?" And I'm like, "Sorry, mom, like you were just getting your coffee." And like you just kind of
Mm,
make these excuses, but like in my mind, like my mom's like, she doesn't understand how my cell phone can die in, like,
yeah.
under a day, because like, she just keeps
Mm,
hers in her purse, and,
yes.
like, literally only person that calls her is me.
Mm, mm,
So, it's
mm.
just it's fascinating that, like, this generation growing up is mobile, and it
Yes.
makes sense, and especially that it's a free game to
Mm,
download.
mm.
It's great to do that, and I know you've worked in other genres, but what really brought you to the cozy gamer side of gaming?
Yeah, yeah. Even with the emergence of mobile, there was such an interesting change with just having a short play session. Because when I was growing up, you'd have an expectation that you sit down and you're probably going to play for hours. I'm firing up Pokemon Blue, I'm playing for a long time. But then with mobile games, you can just, as you say, you just pick it up. You might open it, you do a couple of moves in a puzzle game, you close it. Similar to I open social media, I'm having a little communication snack, and then I put it away. But gaming didn't support or didn't have so much design for a short play session of like pick it up, enjoy it, put it down, kind of like a Rubik's Cube on the go. So when we saw Snake or we saw things like that, that was the emergence of, oh, you'll have some downtime and you can fill some space and you can have some entertainment. Something that I think is so interesting about cozy games is that with Kinda World, one of these big theses that we have is that cozy games can be very interesting for a mobile experience. A lot of what we've seen of cozy games when people go The Sims, Animal Crossing, Stardew Valley, these classics, they really suit and feel wonderful to just like plug in and play for like 4 hours. But what could cozy games do on mobile? And that question of like, how did I come to cozy games? It's really that question of what emotional rewards are you looking for? So when I'm thinking as in terms of game design or I'm thinking about marketing, I think about what emotional experience or emotional sensations would I like to give to the audience. So when I've worked on horror games, it's like, how can I set the expectation of you're going to get creeped out, you're going to have that adrenaline and that excitement and the shock factor of something very, very scary. But with cozy games, it's more like, this will give you some emotional regulation. This is almost like a utopian, like killing is not a verb that's that present in a lot of cozy games, a feeling of abundance and security and community. And I feel like there's so many clear reasons, just like socioeconomically, about why cozy games are really coming in around that pandemic time and post-pandemic time of the world's on fire, very fucking scary. We're more separated than ever. There are tensions. We are now growing up with more exposure to war and global conflict. And so we don't have that. We're not looking to feel powerful. We're not looking to feel like a hero. We're just looking to feel safe. Or we're just looking to feel like we're part of a community. We're a valued member of society. Or I would like the fantasy of having a home and I can have everything that I would like to have in that home. So for me, emotionally, it makes so much sense that I would really enjoy cozy games. I'm also not surprised it's emerged as a genre, but we also have so many more of the gamers like you and I that grew up and we weren't always just wanting to like be the best assassin in GoldenEye, right? Like we really enjoyed raising Pokemon, playing Neopets, and it was care verbs, it was looking after type of verbs. And people will have their gender commentary about it, but I just think we are supporting so many more early gamers, and then they're just coming through and they're looking for those experiences. So there's just so much I think we could be saying about it.
Honestly, I'm literally going to go to every TED Talk you're ever going to host for the rest of your life. Like, I'm like speechless. Like, that's such a good answer. I really do like cozy games. And obviously, like, as the world is literally like on fire, physically, and I was gonna say mentally, but definitely mentally, the world is on fire. Um, it's just nice to just like take that like 5 to 10 minutes and just play a cozy game and just kind of like the world doesn't matter. And you can just unwind and relax because everybody and their mother is so stressed out right now. It could be from what you're seeing on the news, financial struggles, because everything is costing. Like, I don't know when a bag of lettuce turned into $8,
That's right. That's right.
right?
But in a game, you can make that progress. You can gather those resources. There isn't stress. You can be authentic. There's something that's so interesting about having almost like a secular homesteading culture come through, because we will see so often that even now, when we're living these modern, fast paced lives, people will think about, the cottagecore subculture has emerged so much, and people are looking to slow down. People are thinking, how can we do this with what we have? How can we slow down the consumerism? How can we get back to community? And cozy games reflect so many of these practices. And for us, with Kinda World, we've got a really large population of people that are living with anxiety. We have a lot of parents that are living with kids, people that are experiencing grief, for example, but also a lot of people who are neurodivergent, a lot of people from the queer community. And especially, I think, for the queer community to say, this is a safe space where I can have cultural coming of age experiences, I can build an authentic community, I can live this almost traditional life, but who I am and my identity doesn't get me isolated from that. So it makes so much sense to me that cozy games are so embraced by those of us that are queer, anxious, and neurodivergent.
Please tell me that that's like the subtitle for a kinder world. But honestly though, it's true. And it's just like, we've talked a little bit about community on this. Like
Mm.
everybody just wants to feel part of a community and everybody just wants to feel safe. And I think that's just really, really important. Cozy games, have that effect on us. Now, this when did oh my God, cozy, a kinder world. I scrolled to the bottom of your Instagram page
Mhm.
and I saw that um the GoFundMe, and you had made your goal on, I think, February 8th, 2021. How did that feel to like make your goal?
It was an amazing experience because what kind of world was came from like pandemic lockdown experiences. So myself and my co-founder Christina, we'd gone through so much with our business. We had struggled to find something that really was going to have that commercial appeal. We thought that the dream was over. We had had a business breakup with another business partner. We'd been in lockdowns. Melbourne had really harsh lockdowns in COVID, which we support in terms of what the health outcomes were. But oh boy, was it hard, like mentally, emotionally, socially, to go through all of that. And so Christina and I thought, look, the dream's over. We're going to have to go back to working for other people. We're going to have to go back to consulting. Let's make something that is almost like self-indulgent. How do we want to make something with the time that we have left in terms of the money that we have left in this business when we're bruised and battered and depressed and tired? What can we make that will be probably a portfolio piece for us to get a job, right? So it was myself and Christina and Mandy who was working with us as a designer and artist. I really wanted to make something that explored well-being but also houseplant culture because I'd seen that houseplants had become such a part of like getting through the pandemic and like the 2020s almost. I was so interested in what's the relation between houseplants and getting through it basically. Christina was really interested in designing growth algorithms that were inspired by real plant species. Like, could she make something that would grow uniquely every time, but you could say, yeah, that's a monstera, like that looks like that plant species. And then Mandy was really drawn to this idea of an art direction of like a sunny Sunday afternoon, for example. How can we make something that is soothing, cozy, almost like Studio Ghibli-esque? So we spent a month prototyping what would then become Kinder World. It was called Leafy Life, I think, as like a project name for a while. But once we had made it, when I was testing it and doing Facebook testing, I'm like, wow, talking to people and saying I've made a houseplant self-care game, all of a sudden that was an idea that really appealed to people and people really wanted to play the demo. I was sharing it in some Reddit communities for mobile games, but also houseplants, also just anxiety, self-care, things like that. Because at the heart of it, we really thought that all of us, well, I say all of us, the vast majority of people who would be my target audience respect therapy, respect well-being research. They understand I would probably feel better if I did a breathing exercise every day, or I would probably feel better if I could meditate. But so many of us were just in this really heightened anxiety state. Anything like Headspace or Calm or things that we respect the science behind it, but actually making a habit with that would be so hard and would be so uncomfortable and feel like homework. And our brains would just say, I'm too tired to do something hard. I'm not going to open that. I will go and I will open The Sims Free Play, for example, or I will open this other game instead. And so as game developers, we're like, well, as game developers, we're very good at helping people make a habit. We're very good at making something social. We could see that Pokemon Go would help people take a walk they might not have otherwise done. So could we get a game that would help people do that little well-being routine, that would probably help them? So we had this prototype, but then as game developers, we're just like, we just don't have that much money left, but people are responding to the vision. Could we do some crowdfunding for this? So we took it to crowdfunding just to basically get a bit more, just to say, like, do people love this enough that I can spend my time, because life goes very fast, can I find something and offer it to the public and an audience? And they're like, yeah, I love this enough to actually put a little bit of money down for it. And so it was so much hard work to do the preparation and to carry out a campaign for a month, but to have people's support, have people in our own lives, like personal contacts, professional contacts, but even more so the strangers that like found us or that we could reach, and have them all say, yeah, I'll buy you the value of a coffee. Like, I think that this should exist. It was such a relief and so exciting and so much hard work. And then you complete it, and then it's time to carry on and get the thing built. So, but it's a very fun part of our history for sure.
Oh, absolutely amazing. So how long did it take you from once the crowdfunding was done to where we are today? So a couple years?
Yeah, Kind of World now is in what I would call like early access. Game development is one of those things that have got so much jargon as well. So if I'm using acronyms and terms or whatever, truly just feel free to ask. But I would say the Kind of World now is in early access. I think yesterday we had a little bit over 18,000 players, and I think we had 1,100 like new downloads.
Oh,
It's
wow.
available on iOS and Android. So it's just a free to play game. And when I say early access, we're really saying we have got maybe 75 to 80% of all of the key architecture we want to have, but we still want player input on what's the experience you want to have, how should we structure this, how should we find progression. So we're still co-creating with our players, and I wouldn't say that it's a finished product yet. We're really hoping to have a global launch event at very much the end of September. So it has been a couple of years, and it's just gone by in a flash in terms of like build a little bit of a team, figure out where are our channels, how should we be positioning ourselves, getting players around us and working with the players to shape Kind of World into something that can be a small part of your day, but it can be a sustainable little place of peace and joy. And we really hope to have a long relationship with our players in that way.
I love that. I what actually really drew me to this game, and we talked a little bit before this, but I have to say, because I'm a Game Cards ambassador, I do have a lot of opportunities to get to know developers, or we get different. I can't say promotions because that wouldn't be like, but we have the opportunity to
Mm-hmm.
apply to be content creators or ambassadors for other games. I always kind of felt really scared of just being a Sims player. I also didn't want to just keep myself defined as a Sims player, because as a gamer, I can like many types of games. What drew me to this game is the everyday for the daily affirmation and the mindfulness.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Throughout the pandemic, I got really into mindfulness and meditation. It was one of my favorite parts of yoga. Everyone used to be like, oh, Jen just does yoga so she can like close her eyes and nap. But it's that minute to a minute and a half of just closing your eyes, and then everything just calms down. And I'm the biggest person when and anyone's really frustrated, I'll be like, take 3 deep yoga breaths. The problem won't feel as bad after. No matter what it is, you might want to smash a keyboard or throw your computer out the window, but just take those 3, think about it, digest it, move on, calm down. And I think, and during the pandemic, there was a lot of uncertainty, to say the least.
That's
Everyone
right.
was very
Mm-hmm.
anxious. I don't find myself as an anxious person, but there were days when, things were very bleak outside and you
Mm-hmm.
couldn't go outside to see people. And as we are social human beings, that was very difficult.
Mm-hmm.
And that was one of the main reasons I started this podcast, was during the pandemic, was to bring the community closer together, and obviously a kinder world. And the daily affirmations is I got 2 today, and I was like, as somebody who has been struggling a little bit this year of just self-confidence and self-worth, I got a message like, you were enough. And this part, like, it's just a beautiful message that a player had sent, and
Mm-hmm.
that like literally changed my mood. Like, I was like, thank you. I am enough. Like, I'm okay to sometimes not be okay, but I am enough. So I love that. And the thing that really also drew me is the art style. As
Mm.
obviously an anime girly magic girl
Mm-hmm.
nerd,
This babe knows cute. Absolutely.
that I want to hear the process of the art style, who came up with it, and when can I buy a Sammy plushie, because that needs to go on
Mm-hmm.
my wall.
Absolutely. I love hearing your reflections on what drew you to Kind of World, because there are so many design decisions that we've made. And we're not game designers that are like, we're up on the mountain, we have a fully fledged creative vision, and we will decide everything. We really love to test everything with our players to say, do you like it like this? Do you like it like that? So one of the first decisions that we made with player input was the idea of having faces on the houseplants. So in the Kinder World experience, you are given a houseplant to take care of. There are invitations to do self-care activities like mindful breathing or a gratitude reflection or maybe some emotional naming. That enriches the water, that helps you grow houseplants. Then there are also NPC characters, you can decorate your space, but every element of Kinder World has an intentional place, and players have had input in terms of making some decisions there. And we had some hypotheses that reflected it. We had a lot of curiosity around how much of a realism experience would people want, because we thought to have an attachment to the plant, we thought maybe we'll give this plant a face so you can see when the plant is thirsty. The plants will never die. Even if you're like, look, my life exploded, I had a breakup, I'm very depressed right now, I'm not checking in. We had some players say, I'm so scared because in Animal Crossing, when I couldn't come back, then I felt really guilty because there is some punishment there. There's some weeds, there's friction, people comment on me not being there, and I don't want to face that. So very intentionally, we made sure like the plant will never die. You will never get shamed. You'll never be like, oh, we haven't seen you around these parts for a while. Like, we don't have anything like that. We put all of that aside. We did wonder, would people think that it was too silly to have faces on the houseplants? And also, we found the right balance of saying that the plant species are realistic shapes to the plant species, but the houseplant wants to be watered up to twice a day. You and I both know we go out there, we're watering houseplants twice a day, everything's going to fucking die. So, but we put that aside. So again, there's game magic that you can do. So some people have said, well, is this an app or is it a game? It has utility, but it has characters and world building and narrative. So we would say, like, it doesn't really matter. You can see it as an app, you could see it as a game, but we do want to be a positive part of your day. And you mentioned the affirmations. For us, it was really important that we don't come across as toxic positivity of like, live, laugh, love, just everything's about your mindset kind of situation, because sometimes you're living under capitalism and shit is just hard. You could be someone who's living with chronic illness, you're living with grief, and so it's just going to be really shit sometimes. And so having a game where you're naming your emotions, but it's not telling you, is it a good day or a bad day? We don't morally judge what the feeling is. We don't say lots of smiley faces are what you should go for. A frown is down here, a smile is up there. We very intentionally are neutral about the emotions, and the characters will say, all of the emotions that you're feeling, these colored sand in the jar, haven't you made something beautiful by just noticing how you feel? And it's not because you were happy all week. Those were really important, like pandemic influence things to say. Accepting when shit is just hard doesn't mean you agree with it or you're okay with it, but you're seeing it and you're not squashing it down kind of situation. And then the art style came in where we said, well, I'm someone who's really into cute culture. And I think that cute culture has a lot to do with not a gender judgment way of femininity, but if you think about femininity in terms of what it can mean for people, for something to feel authentic, for something to feel comfortable, but also to have the emotional regulation and that calm, cozy feeling. Do you have an inner child that would like some comfort, and enjoy some cuteness? There's a lot of reasons why we really enjoyed things like Animal Crossing, for example, or the way that Sims can get us back in touch with so much childhood play pretend. And it's not a juvenile thing, it's not a waste of time, it can be very therapeutic and can help you process a lot of things. So we have got a team that is very culturally diverse as well. Mandy, who set the art style, is Vietnamese Australian, and has got some Chinese family members as well. We are very influenced by cute culture. Australia is in the Australasia kind of place geographically. So we've got a lot of Western and Eastern influences. And I think we've reached a very hybrid, accessible art style, but it's not the I don't know, like super deformed, kind of hyper cute, but it's the Studio Ghibli Sunday afternoon cozy, comforting, almost Cartoon Networky. There's a little bit of Steven Universe in there. There's a little bit of, comfort. So we've found a place that I really feel very happy with the art style and the way that it makes people feel. And some of our favorite things are to add animations as well. So the place feels like it's living and breathing, and you can just keep it open and you're like, this is my cozy space. And the decoration aspect comes into a lot of that as well. There was so many interesting challenges with the decoration system, and I'm sure that Sims players would have interesting questions about that, but I'll pause there because I think I've monologued for about 20 minutes.
That's okay. As a Sims player, I talk to me about some of those challenges.
It's very interesting because I am waiting with bated breath for the next major installment of The Sims, because the engine work that Maxis does, it's like the Grand Theft Auto of decoration placement. It is very technologically difficult to work in 3D. Kinda World is deliberately a 2D game. It's very flat. We do not have 3D elements. We use particle effects to bring animation in, but there is so much simplification to the creation, the distribution, and the performance of the game because it's 2D and not 3D. When you're on mobile, you also have got file size constraints. There are some people that are on a less powerful device, or it's quite hard for them to download a game that's more than 100 megabytes. Like you and me, when we see like Wuthering Waves, Genshin Impact, gigantic games that are like, I will require 4 gigabytes. There are so many people that don't have 4 gigabytes of space. And we want to be accessible to people that might be on a lower end phone, or they just don't have that much room. The phone's a bit older. So keeping the file size low means like small file sizes, quote unquote, flat art, 2D. We do all these things to try and save on a bit of space, so we can try and keep it as small as possible. That's different when you're making AA games, AAA games, 3D games. So The Sims is so gorgeously impressive in terms of managing 3D spaces, placement, dynamic lighting. There are so many things about those games that just take my breath away from a game development perspective. It's a masterwork. And so the next main installment, I'm way more excited to see what that has achieved and how that has pushed the envelope way more than like Grand Theft Auto. And The Sims and Simmers are such a passionate community. They have so many thoughts and feelings. And I know that Maxis looks so much at them. And I think it's a great example of having a community where you bring the content creators in and you're very interested in their thoughts, and they allow themselves to be surprised by, the content creators that are like, it's the 100 baby challenge, I'm doing a Black Widow run, like a lot of those times those would be emergent narrative trends that have been created by the creators, that the Sims creators would be like, that's amazing, this helps a lot more people understand how to play with the Sims and be inspired by the Sims, but they might not have ever expected that. I'm not speaking for them, but I would expect that. So for us with decoration, it's so difficult to make a decoration experience that is finger navigated, because on The Sims you have the precision of a mouse or like console and things like that. So what fingers do people use to touch their phone? People that are, babes with long manicures, like how much clearance do they need to be able to navigate? We also really wanted to be able to achieve a cluttercore aesthetic if people wanted that. So how could we have a 2D game, but you could still control the depth or the layering of what you were placing from a 2D perspective? How many items could you place before the game would crash and just say that's too much computationally for me to deal with? How could we try and prevent crashes happening? How could we try and make sure that if you're looking at a 2D room in Kinda World, there are only some legal spaces. We don't have free placement. So it's like you can place on a windowsill, you can place on a shelf. Some items have got different laws, like the code will say that can go on a wall, but it can't go on a shelf, for example. So you could make a decorated space that would make sense in terms of physics, but it's a fantasy 2D space. It was a huge day when we managed to allow people to place items on the couch. Everyone wanted to be able to put items on the couch, and we're like, okay, that's going to be really hard, but okay. So we were really happy when we were able to achieve that. But decoration, it's really hard. It's definitely a very complicated feature to make so many rules. And how do you make it an understandable experience? And how do you design inventory user interface that makes sense? Because we all want an infinite amount of items to decorate with, but how do we lay it out so you can understand, oh, you want to find that cushion, but how do I try and categorize it to make sense? We've still got so much to go in terms of improving the decoration system. Our players do a fantastic job of helping to give us feedback and for us to just observe. Like sometimes we will invite some people into the office and say, sorry to be weird, but do you mind just putting everything away in your room and show me how you want to decorate your room? And I can just stand behind you and watch, because I'll be like, oh, they've lost that piece of flooring and they can't find it. Like, how could we design something to help them find that? So it's a beautiful journey of discovery all the time.
Absolutely amazing. Again, these are things like I don't think about. Like as a player, I'm just like, Sims, why no pillow? Pillow on
Yeah.
couch, right?
Yes.
Like we complain about stuff, but I forget you have to think about the developer that's going
Mm-hmm.
through all this. And something I really liked a kind of wrote, it's so like my shelf looks like a fucking hoarder. Just threw everything on there. But that's what I like. And I do like it was so easy to be like, change wallpaper, boop,
Hip
change
hop.
this. Pip pop. Yeah, exactly. Oh, there's my candle. Boop. There's my plant. Boop. I'll change the pop. It was so easy. I didn't need a tutorial how to do it. It was just, and that's what I like. And that's a seamless game design. It was just being, it's easy. I don't have to think about it. I'm playing this between bus stops. Oh, I got new wallpaper. Switch. I like this, right? So,
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I
how to try and make it simple but still offer a bit of depth and customization, because we'll see a lot of mobile games that will have light touch customization. So if anyone has played like Love and Pies or other games that have got light customization, it'll say you've achieved something, you've cleared a level, you pay us 3 stars, now you can choose between 3 different styles. To me, like I really like decoration in games when the choice of decoration is almost like a branching pathway of like, well, I'll obviously choose everything that's pink. I love pink. Favorite color, absolutely. Your headset, gorgeous. But for me, I'll just go, well, there's not too much depth to it. I can't express too much in terms of this customization. But as a game developer, I completely understand that by controlling the variables, they will be able to focus the love and the depth somewhere else, because it might not be the central part of it. But for us, we did want to give that like cluttercore kind of a look. We make sure that you've got all these things that will feel really good to play with, but they'll keep you showing up for the well-being activities. And it might not be every day. You might not have the spoons to do emotional naming every day, but you might like to just have your little space open, change some wallpaper every now and again. It feels nice, you just have a soothing moment, and we're really happy with that. Something that we'd love to do is like more and more of personal representation. So we've just added like a feng shui pack that has a lot of Chinese culture items, for example. We had some pride packs in June that were wonderful. We really enjoyed developing a cottagecore pack, which again is like almost like a subculture. Like we want to wink and nudge those players to say we love these vibes as well. So we'd love to make a pack that you would be excited about. And for us, we take a lot of care to give free items every time we have a pack, because with Kinder World, we have made a very intentional choice that the well-being content is always 100% free, because there are so many mental well-being apps where they're asking for a subscription upfront, or it's a short free trial and then it's paid. I understand developing a product and paying a team is really expensive and people should be paid fairly. We do like to flip the script though and say, we're not going to pay gate the well-being content. What we will have is there are some optional decoration only items in the store. We are not pushy about those. We are not making sure that, you know, you can only experience Kind of World for 10 days. The well-being activity is the part that we believe nourishes you the most. We don't want anything to get in the way of that. And even if only 1 out of 100 players buys something to the tune of a coffee, that covers enough for everyone else to keep on, you know, enjoying the experience. And we get to keep the lights on. We don't like to put a lot of like rewarded ads in there and things like that. I've got a lot of thoughts and feelings about mobile free to play design, you know, and what makes a good experience and how to ethically monetize, but we try and navigate it as much as possible. And having a player audience that says, oh, like I never spend in mobile games, but I've played Kind of World for 3 months and you guys have really helped me. So I'm really happy to like buy this cottagecore pack and support you guys. And we're like, thank you. You really didn't have to do that. But boy, like we super appreciate that we have proven to you, you know, that we can help you. We would like to be generous and help you first. And then if there's a day where you've got an extra couple of bucks, great. If not, no problem, you know, share it with a friend. That kind of be generous first definitely means a lot to us. And we have just developed a lovely, lovely player community that are just so supportive and so happy and so encouraging so much of the time. We do get some players saying like, oh, microtransactions and things, and we're like, we completely understand. If you have any other suggestions on how I can make sure my team is getting paid, I'm absolutely all ears. But 99% of the time, everybody's just like, great, they're there if I want them. Maybe I'll make a purchase on my next paycheck. Maybe I won't. And we're like, great, that's fine too.
Well, and that's exactly it. And that was something that really like, was so wonderful with the Kind of World. There was no ads.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
I didn't just like place a poster on the wall and then be like, oh, here's 30-second ad, or
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
or if I need coins, here, watch 6 minutes of ads for today. And you're just like, these are all gambling ads. I can't stand this because
It's
I
so hard.
am very against online gambling.
Mm-hmm.
That is something that
Mm-hmm.
it really bothers me. And
Yeah.
the fact that like this is like you're, and as soon as it clicked in, like you're right. All the well-being stuff, there's no ad. You don't
Mm.
have to buy any of the stuff. It's all extras. And that's the beauty. If you're a content creator or a player and you want to support, like I would rather give my hard-earned money to a smaller developer company than Bethesda. Okay. Like I
Mm-hmm.
can't say Daddy EA because I hope to one day he'll sponsor me. But
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yes, for sure, for sure.
uh,
But it's one of those things where, you know, that ad experience, like when I have worked on and when I've developed mobile games where rewarded ads was part of the monetization, what you do as a game developer is you have this mobile game, you have a couple of like sort of slots where you say, okay, if a player really wants to get, you know, 10 coins for watching an ad, then I have to have a plugin from an ad platform. I have to have that plugin integrated into my game so that when you say, okay, thank you, I would like to watch an ad, it does a call to that plugin. And that ad platform is the one that controls what ads they have on that platform. So as a developer, I can go in and say, I don't want any adult content. I don't want violent content. I don't want gambling ads, things like that. But I would still have experiences where I would have parents screenshotting and sending me things to say my kid plays this game and then this really violent ad came up and I'm like, oh my god, I would take so much care on those ad platforms to try and filter out everything I could, but the ad platform, like the filtering is just not that good, and sometimes they would rather get told off and then remove it than just straight up removing it. Or I would see that I'm quote unquote leaving money on the table because I could make so many more cents on an impression if I allowed everything that they had on the platform. So when developers are still trying to do this as a living, the things that you try and compromise to say, well, can I compromise on this? Because there's a lot of people that just don't have any disposable cash. And some players would rather, and some players have asked us, like, I'd like more dog treats, which is the soft currency that we have in the game. Can you put a rewarded ad in? And we're like, look, maybe we would consider it potentially. We would try and be really careful about filtering as much as we could. Maybe the ad technology is better than 4 years ago when I last had to work with that technology, but I'd still want to really make sure, like, is that really what the player wants? And is that a player that really would prefer to go through that experience rather than make a purchase, because people are coming from really different contexts, but most game developers are thinking it in their minds. A lot of the time players will be like, oh, greedy developers with all these microtransactions. Sometimes I do disagree, and I look at their monetization plan and I'm like, what was the thinking behind that monetization plan? But I do know that in their heart, most game developers want to deliver the best experience they can to the most amount of people. And it's just really complicated out there.
No, it totally makes sense. And I've harped on EA a lot for microtransactions because
Mm. Oh
we
boy,
don't,
is there a lot of them.
right? Like we don't need like 60 fucking kits, okay? Like,
Yes,
you know what I
yes.
mean? Like I would like one expansion pack a year, maybe.
Mm.
One game pack a year. If you don't have to, it's fine. Maybe one or two kits. Not like, oh, in this quarter, we're gonna release 6 kits, an expansion pack, a game pack, and real life merch. And you're like, that's like half a rent payment
Yeah,
stuff you're
it's
pushing out.
bewildering. It's so bewildering looking at that and saying, well, how many of these addressable players will purchase everything? Like, how are they breaking down the personas of what they purchase? And sometimes I have a look at like the world of tabletop. So the people that are really into Critical Role, really loving D&D, like Hasbro, Wizards of the Coast, really do sell this idea of buying all of the minifigs, buy all the maps, buy all of the dice, buy all of the expansions. Whereas the heart of tabletop games is the theater of the mind. You don't actually have to have all of those things to be able to play a really good game. But some people do get more joy in this is what I collect, this is what I enjoy. But I do feel that as much as I'm someone that like loved The Sims 2, I feel so bewildered and overwhelmed by the modern state of Sims now. That's also why I'm looking forward to the next main installment, because I'm like, this will feel like a clean slate where I can start on the ground floor with everyone, and then I can pick and choose what I want. But I'm so overwhelmed now because I'm like, well, I want this cottagecore experience, and then I want the llamas, but then I want to have this polyamorous experience. And then I'm like, what do you mean I have to spend $400 to do all that?
What, you want to spend $60 for it to rain?
Yeah,
$60 to own a dog?
$60 to make it rain. Oh my Lord. Like, yeah, it really can get like that sometimes. So the monetization plans can feel very bewildering. What I would definitely suggest is that, I mean, we have so much like outrage culture online, and unfortunately, with algorithms, like if you're yelling, if you're so angry, if you are threatening violence a lot of the time, Twitter will be like, yummy, let's put that to the top of the algorithm. So I think some game consumers will feel like, well, the best thing for me to do is get really angry, leave a really negative review, yell, and it's really, really, really difficult. But a lot of the time, game developers, they're reading the subreddits, they're looking in the communities, they're always taking the tone of sentiment. But what I would always ask players to do is like try and think generously and calmly as much as possible, like about what to do. And I would love for the algorithms to just calm everything down, but there really is so much outrage culture out there, isn't there?
No, there absolutely is. And I like to pretend that the rage community in The Sims doesn't exist. It very much does.
Ignore.
I don't see it as much because
Mm,
everybody just wants to come on and be a guest. So,
lovely.
but that also being said, I know anytime because there's a new expansion pack coming out in a week and a half, and when the vibrating bed doesn't work, or the pleasure toys go through the eyeballs, or instead of the areas, or something like that, we're gonna have God damn it, EA, and stuff
That's
like
so
that.
funny.
But the thing is like again, like I harp on Daddy EA a lot. But
Mm-mm-mm.
that also being said, is don't fight with the gurus. They're just customer
There'll be a plan.
service.
There'll be
Yeah.
a plan somewhere. Exactly. Like fighting the gurus, like raging out at the customer service stuff. I mean, the new sort of pleasure related content coming out to me is so interesting because you know that like Wicked Whims has been brought up 1 billion times
Yes.
in those office meetings. And there would be lots of people on the team that are like, I fully respect that so many people want this kind of experience. And how can we do it in a way that still fits the brand? Can we do this in a way where kids and families can still navigate this safely? Like what can we do? And it probably has taken so many years to be able to get to this point. But I know that there would be people that would have wanted to do it for so long, and that the team are looking at whatever Wicked Whims is doing. This is me. I'm making so many armchair claims, but I'm like, I know that they would be looking at what's happening there, because Wicked Whims is a gigantic product and like a gigantic platform, and a reason for so many people to buy The Sims and like play with Sims content, because they're like, this intriguing, horny content over here. And I love that. But the corporate dance must have been so hard to navigate.
I mean, absolutely. I mean, there's going to be dildos in The Sims. Like how, like
That's amazing.
I love that. I love that for the people. Like,
Yes.
but there was execs being like, okay, we need 3 different sizes.
Yeah,
Like,
this dildo is too dildo-y. It needs to
yeah.
be, no, we can't have a bad dragon sponsorship. No, like so interesting to me, like to navigate it. My young self, little brain would have exploded to be like, they'll acknowledge sex beyond the euphemistic coy woohoo style, which I think is like, yeah, like so cute. And I fully understand why they navigated it. I still remember the day that our game artist Kara was like, Lauren, there's fan fiction of Kinder World. And I'm like, oh my God, oh no. Because we have animal neighbors, and I'm like, bless the furries, but I'm not ready. I'm not ready to see pornography. But actually, Christmas was saved. It was actually really, really sweet. It was platonic fan fiction between Sammy and Quilliam. They were just having a nice time. It wasn't romantic. It wasn't sexual content. I know we're going to get there. I know we're going to get there one day. I'm not ready, but people are really going to do what they're going to do. There's one thing, and someone's going to have a sexy thought about it. So, oh well.
Isn't that rule 43?
Yeah, rule 34.
Rule 34. Rule 34.
Yeah,
Literally,
yeah.
as soon as you said that, I was like, my soul left my body.
I know. It's
Wow.
okay. I would take it as a compliment, but
Yes.
we're not psychologically ready. We're not psychologically ready. So people can super enjoy it as they want to enjoy it, but we do have a lot of like kids and families,
Yes.
but a lot of people will see the game, and if they don't understand cute culture, they'll think it's only a kids game, and we're like, no. It's definitely not. We're here to help every sort of an adult, but yeah. The sweet fairies.
Definitely that sweet, sweet fairies. Which actually brings me to be like, let's talk about the rest of the characters. So everyone else can write their future fanfics.
That's right. That's right. Something that we really love doing with Kinda World, and something that I love about cozy games in general, is we have got these animal characters that are very sweet. It's Animal Crossing style. The player themselves are not embodied, so we don't have an avatar. We don't show you yourself and what you look like, because for some people they're like, they can never feel represented by a character creator. They don't want to focus on themselves. They don't want to feel comparison of appearance. And some people would like the flexibility of imagining they are also an animal villager, or they're just themselves. And we're like, great, let's have the flexibility where the characters are talking to you, they're talking animals, it's magic, we're not questioning it, it's fine. What are you in this situation? It's totally up to you. The main character, Sammy, is canonically non-binary. I think it's non-binary awareness month, maybe. Sammy uses all pronouns. But it's not like that some major upfront here's the lowdown of me as a character. We don't have a lot of that sort of exposition, but Sammy has got certain mysteries to them. They are very upbeat, they're very friendly, they're super encouraging to the player. They'll send you letters, they'll help you clean up your spaces. But there is a backstory to Sammy that we're really hoping to touch on as we go through more updates. But Sammy sort of represents the virtue of like human, like kindness, basically. So you start with Sammy being the tutorial character. We have got Luna, who is we had a lot of really interesting player feedback with Luna as a character, because she is a young fox. She went through art school. She loves art, but then was unable to find a work in a creative field. She ended up having to move back home. She's feeling very burned out. She's feeling like a failure because there are colleagues that have gone on to work full-time in the creative field. Luna's working in the post office. It's very quiet. It's like being in a country town. She's sketching, but she is representing Like she represents creativity, but she's living with burnout. She has got really interesting backstories around identity. She's adopted. She grew up in a different culture to what she was born into. And she's not a very smiley person. So at the post office, when we added her, a lot of players are like, I don't like this serious character. She seems really grumpy and pissed off all the time. And we were really surprised. We're just like, we just didn't give her a really animated smile, or it's quite hard to get her to smile. But some players would really have an expectation of, in a cozy game, everyone is friendly to me. Like everyone smiles, and I'm uncomfortable seeing someone who is struggling a little bit or not expressively happy. So the pushback from some players, like people seem to really love her, or some people seem to feel a bit uncomfortable. And that was so interesting to us. Some people are like, you got to patch it, make it more smiley. And we're like, this is her personality. So it was very interesting. We've got Quilliam, who is very socially awkward. He's a father, he's a grandfather, he's had lots of kids. You don't get the context of who he had those kids with, or, is there another parent in the picture? He loves his daughter Callie and talks about her as an example, but Callie has moved overseas. She's more fluent in another language that's not their shared one now, and he doesn't know how to relate to her. He's very socially awkward. If he's not talking about plants, he doesn't really know how to connect with people. So a lot of people are like, autism representation. And we're like, yeah, that probably does make good sense for him. And he's very, very sweet. And we also have Fern. So Fern is also non-binary. Fern uses they, them pronouns. They are a researcher, basically in the woodlands. They're a moose. Fern is living with chronic fatigue, very sweet, very gentle, very low energy. And then exploring those elements of like, what is it to live with chronic illness? What is it to have a low energy lifestyle? The frustration that can come with that, the grief that can come with that, finding friends that can like understand and, have acceptance of like different fluctuating days and things. So we have this very sweet sort of animal neighborhood of villages. There'll be more characters coming, but all of them are still having a very human, very realistic kind of a struggle. We're not interested in a utopia where, what are you talking about? Everything's great, as everything is so perfect. But people that are like, does this person have PTSD actually? Maybe, we're not trying to have a gotcha or to really bum people out, but to say you can be a warm, cared for person, and you can also struggle with things. And we give players experiences to have insight with letters. You can write letters back to the characters, you can speak with them, but you're also not responsible for like solving their problems. We don't burden you with quest lines. It's more about giving a character company while they're processing their stuff. So the character development has been really fun, and we look forward to adding more of that later this year.
Oh my God, that was amazing. So wholesome. You said that you're hoping for a harder launch in September. Now, I have to ask this as a content creator to a game developer. I can remember the first day somebody listened to my podcast who I did not know because they were actually in Australia. It's actually hilarious. My podcast was so big in Australia throughout the pandemic.
Amazing.
I loved it. I was like, I don't know anybody in Australia, but I love you guys. What did it
Mm-hmm.
feel like for you when people started downloading the game that you didn't force into our family?
It was really special. So I have had the pleasure of working on games where in the past I have seen people in the wild, playing a game that I've worked on. That is always a magical, freaky experience where like it is jumped containment and you're seeing that someone is playing it on a train and you're like, okay, I can't be weird about this. Don't stare too much, like you don't want to be, hey, I worked on that. Do you like that? So I was like, you got to be really careful not to be too weird. But actually recently I had such a sweet experience where I was in Melbourne Airport with my wife. I was traveling to Townsville to see family. And we were walking around, and a woman's like, excuse me, excuse me. And I just thought that I was like in the way. So I like stepped to a side. She's like, hey. And I turned around and she's like, are you Lauren from Kinda World? And I was like, ma'am, excuse me. And she's like, oh, I'm a big fan. My like daughter plays this game, we play it together, I recognize you from the TikTok. Can I take a photo with you? And I was like, this is crazy. I had a mask on. I'm like, what? I was very, very surprised. I was glad that my wife was with me, so I'm like, I didn't just work too hard and then have an absolute hallucination. She was so sweet, so lovely. We took a picture, and when you hear from people about how important the game has been, when someone is like, "Oh, I lost my dad to cancer this year, and this has just really been something to help me get through it. This is more than entertainment. It means so much to me." Like, we get so emotional about it. Like, people that are like, "Oh, I told your characters that I was gay before I told anyone else," and I'm like, "Oh my god, yes." And you don't expect it. You don't expect it. You start to hear about it, and yeah, those first days where a stranger from the internet is like, "I really like this, and I really appreciate you having done that," I'm like, that is really lovely and very, very meaningful for me, because life is short, as you say, world is on fire. Taking the time to put into a game, I can't work on something that isn't purposeful for me. So we've been blessed by the best players in the world. We've had really special experiences about hearing how Kinder World has helped people, and I can't say thank you enough.
That's so precious. I love that. I love that for you so much. What hopes and dreams do you have a year from today? So today is we're already through the middle of July, guys. Like, holy shit. Goddamn, 24 is going 2024 is going too
Mhm.
fast. But what's a year from today look like for you in a kinder
Yeah.
world?
Totally. A year always goes by in an absolute blink. It always goes so quickly. What I would be hoping for is we launch Kind of World later this year with a really big event. By next year, I would love to be just delivering really exciting in game events for players, grow the community. And I would love to be in development for Kind of World to go to another platform. So to be able to take Kind of World to PC, to be able to take Kind of World to Switch, for example, what does that experience look like would again be something that we would co-develop with our players. But I'd love to take it to more platforms, grow the original game, and just get to keep doing this day to day, because life can be really tough, but I have never loved a job or a project more.
That's absolutely amazing. I am so proud of you. I'm so proud for the success. I'm so happy to be part of the creator content ambassador team and being able to plug such amazing content. I got a couple more questions and we're gonna wrap up because I know it's a morning for you and I'm going to bed soon. Um Now we're gonna switch gears a little bit as a Neopet girly
Oh,
to
yeah.
Neopet girly. The first thing I thought of is when the plant couldn't die, I immediately went and thought of Neopets. Was there any inspiration in between that?
100%, because I don't want to bring negative penalties into the game. With Neopets, I would feel rewarded as a player to show up and sort of clear my dailies. And it was one of my first experiences of like, this is my hobby game where I could just clock in and just enjoy sort of at least 20 minutes to an hour most days, and feel rewarded, but also that I didn't feel punishment coming back in, and there was no skill erosion. I've played some games where the economy of scale of developing adeptness, like you're playing Elden Ring, you're playing a fighting game, there's a muscle memory to keep sharp. And that's a different type of enjoyment. With Neopets, I was as good on one day as I was the other most of the time with Neopets. So those things definitely influenced me by playing so much when I was younger. Definitely the idea of I will never feel devastated for failing in my responsibility so significantly. But oh boy, I still felt good keeping the pets fed. Absolutely, with Neopets. So there, and I mean, it motivated me to learn basic HTML. Like, there are so many things about Neopets that positively influence me.
It's honestly, it's Sims and Neopets were the gateway drugs for girlies. Like
That's right.
let's be honest, right? Like
Yes.
early 2000s, we had our Game Boys.
Mm.
Um, we had dress up games,
Oh, yeah.
E-Bombs World,
Mm-hmm.
before YouTube, addictive games. Like that was like like everything was flash games.
Yes. And speaking of Flash games, one of my absolutely dear mentors, Emily Greer, who has had such a positive influence on me, and I just love her as a mentor. Her heart and her brain are just huge. And she was one of the co founders of Congregate with her brother. So there was, a woman at the steering wheel of one of the biggest platforms for Flash games. And she has always looked out for games for women, games where women make community around it, the immersion and the emergence of casual games. She's always been a supporter of that. So women have always been in the games industry. We've always enjoyed games, and I feel like it's just now that we're starting to see some strongholds and some influences of what's come decades before.
We finally get to sit at the table.
That's right. That's right.
And we get to be where the decisions are made.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you've already sold me on this game, but I am opening up a 30-second pitch for you. Everybody listening to this, why should they go download A Kinder World?
So, Kinder World is all about finding a moment of peace in your day. With just 2-minute sessions, we will help you relax, maybe take the deepest breath you've had all day. It's a game that meets you where you're at. It's cozy, it's sweet, it's relaxing, and we would just love to have you in the player community. So you can download Kinder World on iOS or Android. It's completely free, it's no pressure, but we think that you'll love it.
Absolutely amazing. If you do want to go download this game, I have my creator link below. You would be supporting not only a very sweet game, but you would also be supporting me as a creator. So please, if you go in, you get the game, let me know. I will send you my friend's code and we can send each other anything and everything in a kind of world. So thank you, Lauren, for so much for coming on here today. Where we can find A Kinder World.
Great. So at Kinder World Game, pretty much everywhere. You can just Google Kinder World Game mobile. You can find it on iOS or Android. We're active on Instagram the most, I would say. We've got a gorgeous Discord community, but you can also find us on Twitter or Tumblr. Tell us what pot designs we should add. Tell us what decorations you want to see, what houseplants you want to grow. We make ourselves really available. We would just love to be having conversations. And I just want to say thanks again for such a great show, such interesting questions. It's been an absolute joy, and we'd love to get to know your community as well.
Oh my goodness, thank you so much. We're very kind over here and we swear a lot. Those are the two things that my
I'm
community.
so comfortable. I love it
Right.
here.
Exactly. I built a safe space for anybody to come. So thank you, Lauren, so much for coming here today. The links are going to be below if you would like to check out A Kinder World on Discord, TikTok and X and Instagram. Please go do that. Lauren, it has been an absolute pleasure getting to know you today, and I cannot wait to watch this game grow because it is such a beautiful, wholesome game. Not only that, I can't wait to learn more about when it's, the big launch and you get to
Oh,
see your
yeah.
baby. It's like watching your baby go off to kindergarten for the first time. You have a tear, but you know all that hard work that you put in there is showing. So Lauren, thank you again so much for being here today. Everybody, this is not the beginning of season 3. I love you guys. Season 3 will be back in the fall, but I have said I am booking guests for season 3. So if you're listening to this podcast and you want to be a guest, please reach out to me. I will be sending out calendar links in August. I wish everybody the best day ever. And remember, there's no cost for being kind. Just be nice, smile, hold the door. It could really make or break somebody's it can really make somebody's day of just having a positive interaction with you. So everybody out there, I hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye everyone.
Thanks, everyone.